Hi, I am making this video because I do have a bigger one planned, and I just do not want to pad that one out any further than it is. So, I know this is 7 years too late, but I wanted to make this not just because I want to show myself I have matured, but also because I think it needs to be said. First off, for some context, I never really cared for Superman. I thought he was just a boring power fantasy. But then I played a game called Injustice: Gods Among Us, and with just one single line...
He was right, you know. About what? Put in the same position, I might have done the same thing. We never know what we're truly capable of.
I came to respect Superman a lot, because I realized this is not just some power fantasy given form. This is a human being with the power of a god who is willing to admit his flaws. So, as you can tell, I respect this game and I am open to varied interpretations of the character. You know who isn't open to varied interpretations of the character? Meet the fourth Snake. He is notorious amongst the fighting game community for being an incredibly toxic content creator who believes his subjective opinions are objective fact, and calling the audience and his viewers all sorts of distasteful things. Injustice: Gods Among Us is one of the many games he's talked about, and says that it's nothing more than an edgelord fanfiction made flesh. Also, I'm going to assume that you have at least watched this video of his, so let's just get into this so I can finish up this trilogy. To start off, he criticizes the game as a misunderstanding of the characters, especially when the writers do clearly know who they are as characters, as proven with their main universe counterparts. I would like to contest this by saying that just because the character is not in line with their main counterpart, does not mean it's a bad portrayal, or even a misunderstanding at that. Take it from a Godzilla fan who is currently marathoning the franchise with a non-Godzilla fan. What makes him a great character is that there is no one portrayal that is 100% identical to each other, and he can appeal to a wide variety of people as a result. My friend says she enjoys the first film the most, but she has also enjoyed films like Son of Godzilla for just how different it was, for putting Godzilla into a position that he's normally never in. My point is, just because an interpretation is not true to the original idea does not mean it's a bad interpretation. In fact, for me, it was the evil Superman idea that drew me to Injustice in the first place. But by the end, after seeing just how amazing good guy Superman could be, I went from being someone who just called Superman this overpowered being who is just boring because of it, to I genuinely appreciate this character for what he stands for and the fact that he has not become this. And it only worked because the writers did understand Superman. And I hate to be that person, but calling Injustice Superman evil is an easy to understand term, but he's not really an evil Superman. Ultraman is an evil Superman. He is just a purely evil mirror reflection of him. Injustice Superman, on the other hand, is the anti-Superman. He is to Prime Superman as what Jack Skellington is to the Grinch. Both have the same goal: protect the people of Earth from any threat that comes near it or happens on it. But whereas the Prime Superman achieves this through spreading hope, goodwill, truth, and justice, the anti-Superman instead achieves this through fear, force, tyranny, and his denial about what he's become. That's why most people tend to be disgusted by this version of Superman, because he is still Superman, just with the character's ideals reversed. And frankly, you can't get that same feeling of horror at what he does if it was just the crime syndicate again, who, at the end of the day, are not the heroes we know and love. Superwoman is not Wonder Woman, but she is. Johnny Quick is not the Flash, but he is. Ultraman is not Superman, but he is. Injustice, at the end of the day, is a breakdown of who these people are. That's why it's called Gods Among Us. It's literally telling you just how human these gods among men are. And how even though we paint them as infallible, like this guy does, they are still just as human as you or I. Dare I say it? Injustice is more of a celebration of Superman than a complete blasphemous retelling of it, by showing us this horrifically depraved version of Superman when his main counterpart is brought to this unfortunate universe. I still get chills when I hear that music swell and see that symbol. Every time I go back and watch that scene, I still get a feeling of, oh yeah, here we go, when I see him do this and his heroic duties. Why? Because the writers understand the characters enough to know that by contrasting the Superman we know against his twisted doppelganger, it helps us appreciate that old school style of heroism we can expect from the all-time greats in the genre of comic books. Storytelling medium, not genre, sorry about that. And then you've got arguments made by the Force Snake that sound good on paper, but really don't make sense. Like, after Superman kills Shazam, he questions why they all don't just jump Superman and immediately turn on him.
He also says Superman in any continuity, no matter how evil, would never do something like this, even though we've seen plenty of evil Supermans who would absolutely do something like this before Injustice was a thing.
First, he's applying the same morality and logic that one would to the Prime Universe Superman, which, once again, he is not. Secondly, half the team are villains who'd never give a crap about the fact that Superman just murdered a child, especially Black Adam. And lastly, that's why Superman killed Shazam. He was basically turning on him, and realistically, what the hell is someone like Catwoman, Nightwing, or even Bane going to do against someone like Superman, Black Adam, Wonder Woman, Doomsday, and 2 Yellow Lanterns who are on par with Green Lanterns? Yeah, I know if he sees this video, he or someone else in the comments will eventually say, the happy pills. But earlier, he criticized that the pills are unrealistic in their abilities, so you can't even use them as an argument. Then you've got straight up nitpicks, like how each cutscene has to end with the characters starting at the left side of the screen, or how the non-returning characters in Injustice 1 are never explained why they are absent. They are not game-breaking issues, nor a sign of laziness. It's something that's needed to be done to either maintain continuity between scenes, or because the character is not needed for the story. He also complains about half the DLC being guest characters, which, honestly, I don't agree with. Let's be honest, the guest characters tend to get more hype out of people than the base roster, as they not only get people talking, but also get people interested in buying the new games. I bought Injustice 2 just for the Ninja Turtles alone, and I imagine the same also applies to MK1 for Omni-Man and Homelander. The next thing I am going to talk about is his openness about not liking Batman. For whatever reason, he just seems to really not like Batman in stories like this. Especially when it comes to Batman vs. Superman stories, saying it's an overdone idea and just an excuse for people to wank Batman even more than they already do. Once again, he makes a point, but I'd like to counter that by saying you'd be hard-pressed to find a hero versus hero matchup in DC with as much popularity, thematics, and legacy as Batman vs. Superman. They are the flagship characters of the company. They basically invented and shaped how modern superheroes are. One is a symbol of hope associated with the light. The other is a symbol of fear associated with the dark. One is a mortal man who is constantly fighting to surpass or overcome his limitations. and the other is a man with no limitations and must hold back because of it. They are the mascots of the company, and no friendship rivalry has quite the same fame. It's like Goku versus Vegeta. It's a very defined thing in the mythos, and you'd be surprised if these two never fight at some point. By comparison, Marvel, which has had 2 separate Big 3s during its lifetime and numerous hero versus hero matchups that it can stem from, DC's only ever had 3. Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and only one of those characters have eye-catching matchups between the 3. So, can you blame DC for milking this fight as much as they have? He does. So getting into this later, to give you an idea on how much he is tired of Batman vs. Superman stories, he made his own pitch for a rebooted Injustice storyline, which swapped out Batman vs. Superman for Batman vs. Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman in this story is the underdog who must stop Batman, who is the all-powerful regime leader. Is the matchup bad? No, I guess. But at the same time, that's like trying to replace Goku versus Vegeta with Gohan versus Vegeta and making Vegeta the underdog, while not giving Gohan any Super Saiyan transformations. It's not as eye-catching as Batman vs. Superman, unfortunately, and you have to tear one character down to a point of such weakness just so you can bootlick one character more. Ironic, considering this pitch comes from a guy who says that's all people do with Batman nowadays. Not to mention, I think there's just more interest to see these two fight because there is a tried and true dynamic. They are spiritually antithetical to one another. Wonder Woman is not an antithetical to either one. And finally, we get to the biggest thing I wanted to address in this video. His Wasted Potential series. Basically, one of his biggest gimmicks is that he is a fanfiction writer, so when they release something he doesn't like, which is always, he makes his own version of that story, and Injustice is no different. I won't go over every detail he'd change, but the ones that stick out to me the most are these. Starting in reverse, in his pitch for Injustice 2, he pitches the idea that Kara and other characters can make Superman see the error of his way and redeem himself. I'm sorry, but in my opinion, I believe there is no redemption for Superman at this point. Superman, in the Injustice universe, showed his true colors already. He may believe he's protecting the planet and still sees himself as its champion, but his actions in that now infamous scene with Shazam says everything about him. He's a cruel, tyrannical, heartless dictator who proclaimed himself god of this world, who has outright said the decision on who lives and dies is his and his alone. That was the whole point of Shazam, to show us that Superman is dead in every essence of the word, but in body. And the vast majority of people I've spoken to or heard discussions from agree that there is no coming back from this. This is Superman's moral event horizon. There is no forgiving him. The second one I wanted to talk about is his rewrite of Injustice 1. His basic story pitch goes like this. Instead of the Joker, it's Ra's al Ghul or Vandal Savage that blew up Gotham instead of Metropolis, which causes Batman to go rogue, defeats every hero on Earth essentially with nothing more but his contingency plans, forces Wonder Woman to form the rebellion against him, and requires her, Superman, and another Batman to unite to take him down. And just to be clear, this Batman is still human. He has no god powers, no infinity gauntlets, no lantern rings. He's just as human as he's always been. First off, it's good to note that in canon, in the main DC continuity, there is an explanation as to why Batman does seemingly beat Superman regularly. It's because Superman never takes his fights with Batman seriously. In other words, he lets him win. So in other words, The idea that Batman would be able to take down every single hero on Earth with nothing but contingencies is absurd.
Especially since Batman's contingencies have a consistent history of backfiring, being exploited, or just straight up not working for any number of factors.
Another reason why he chose Batman to be the villain, because he walks that thin line between good and evil. Look, just because Batman has the personality of a villain but the heart of a hero, does not mean he walks a fine line between being a hero and a villain. That better describe characters like more recent depictions of Venom or Red Hood. And once again, having Batman defeat every single hero on Earth while also murdering every single villain at the same time? I'm sorry, but this is the same guy who said people just suck Batman because he's Batman. And now he's doing the exact same thing that he's accusing fans of Batman like me of. Also remember, this is the same guy who basically says the Injustice series are nothing but Batman power fantasies. And he just wrote a Batman power fantasy. This is a prime example of a rare species I like to call Hippopotamus contradictus, or as I like to call it, the hypocrite. And besides, we already had a story similar to his idea. And you would be hard-pressed to find someone who genuinely thinks the Batman Who Laughs is a good character. And not some cringe fanfiction creepypasta brought to the official canon. Other complaints he has are numerous, but at this point they are just so nitpicky or just his problems that they really don't matter. These are the big ones I wanted to hit. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please consider liking and subscribing if you want to. Until then, I have bigger projects to work on.